Welcome to the Human Rights Cafe. My name is Jacob Sule. When people's rights are tampered with or denied, it means that my rights and yours are being undermined. Hence, we must educate people about their rights. The Human Rights Cafe is a collaborative virtual conversation of a Right to Live initiative to equip new generation of leaders to know, promote, and protect citizens' rights and dignity of all persons. The conversation seeks to promote human rights, justice, peace, and strong institutions as provided for by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our goal is to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign and respect for citizens' rights. If you'd like to know more about the Human Rights Cafe, please join our conversation on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter via @HRightsCafe. Once again, Jacob Sule. Thank you. Good afternoon and welcome to the Human Rights Conversation, this edition today. My name is Jacob Sule. I have a guest with me in the studio today who would have this conversation with us on issues of human rights. Once again, I want to apologize for starting this conversation behind schedule. It was because of some technical issues beyond our control. The Human Rights Cafe is a collaborative virtual conversation of the Right to Live initiative that features legal practitioners working to support and equip new generation of leaders to know, promote, protect, and advance the advocacy for human rights and dignity of all persons. As you all know, there are issues of human rights abuse around the world. This conversation seeks to create an enabling environment to educate young persons across the world on issues of human rights. Today on this conversation, I am joined with a lawmaker who is also a lawyer and author and an author. Ladies and gentlemen, on this conversation with me today is Honorable Bamidele Salam. Bamidele Salam is a lawyer, an author, and a politician, currently serving as a member of the House of Representatives in Nigeria, representing the good people of Ede North, South, and Egbedore Federal Constituency. Honorable Bamidele Salam is a member of the ECOWAS Parliament and the Vice Chairman of the House Representatives Committee on Pensions. Honorable Bamidele Salam's goal is to make landmark impacts in access to justice, particularly for the less privileged, and also access to education. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me as I welcome Honorable Bamidele Salam on the show. Hello, sir.
Hello, Jacob Sule. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to everyone who is following us on this program today. It's my pleasure to join you on this conversation, and I hope that we'll make the best of the conversation this afternoon. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, sir. I understand as a lawmaker, you have so many schedules in which you attend to. Once again, I want to appreciate you for creating time out of your busy schedule to join us on this conversation today. We have viewers joining this conversation from around the world, and then it's once a privilege again to have you join this conversation. So, sir, let me ask you, it's a common knowledge that the Nigerian police force is a major abuser of human rights in Nigeria. And then we understand that the Nigerian police force is an organ of the executive arm of government. However, we also know that the National Assembly has oversight powers over the activities of the executive arm of the government, as provided in Section 88 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. So my question is, you as a lawmaker and as a lawyer, how has the National Assembly used its oversight power to check the flagrant abuse of human rights by Nigerian police in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you very much. Like you rightly said, the National Assembly, as an institution that makes law, also has the powers by virtue of Section 88 of the Nigerian Constitution to oversight government ministries, departments, and agencies, of which the Nigerian Police Force is one of such. It is very correct that issues of fundamental human rights are germane to the sustenance of democracy. Human rights are enshrined in the Nigerian Constitution, especially Chapter 4 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 from Section 33 to 46. Make provisions for different types of rights which Nigerians are entitled to and guaranteed under the laws. And this also follows after the various international conventions and protocols on human rights, especially the UN Declaration on Human Rights. Having said that, it is also true, rather unfortunate, that the Nigerian police has been found on a number of occasions to have men of the police force. Let me say that, because not everyone in the police, but some men of the Nigerian police force have been found on a few occasions to have infringed on these rights. When they infringe on the rights of a citizen, they are infringing on the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution. And because as lawmakers, we are sworn to uphold the Constitution of the Republic of Nigeria, we have a responsibility, we have a duty to ensure that such infringements are brought to book, whether through legislative processes in our oversight, or when citizens also take up such matters by seeking for judicial reprieve. The National Assembly, especially the House of Representatives, of which I'm a member, has a committee that is a committee on police affairs. That committee is saddled with the responsibilities of ensuring that the Nigerian police force acts still within the mandate given to it by the Police Act, which is an instrument of the National Assembly, and of course by the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution and every other law so enabling. When the House Committee on Police Affairs receives reports, either from members of the public or from members of the National Assembly, of any form of infringement on rights of citizens, it immediately acts on such reports by constituting a fact-finding team to investigate the allegations of infringement on those rights, and the reports of such committees are brought to the House in plenary for consideration. Now, a number of members of the House of Representatives in the last 1 year have also brought different complaints and reports about infringement on rights of their constituents by members of the Nigerian Police Force. I remember one in particular, an incident that happened in Ogun State that was brought to the plenary by a member, Honorable Onanuga from Ogun State, who brought a case of policemen in a federal constituency who shot and killed a young man who was alleged, to have been involved in some criminal activities by the police, but rather than apprehend him and bring him to court, he was extrajudicially murdered. That matter was brought to the House, and the House set up a committee to investigate. I must also add at this stage that there is a committee in the House that is called the Committee on Public Petitions. I am a member of that committee. That committee also handles so many instances of report of infringement on the rights of Nigerians. We have cases of people who were unduly have their employment terminated by the Nigerian Police Force. We have people who were unduly locked up and denied of their fundamental human rights of freedom by the police, and all these cases are referred to the Committee on Public Petitions, apart from the Political Committee on Public Affairs to investigate. So when we do these investigations, we bring the report of the investigations to the House in plenary, and the House now takes decision on them. It is after then that they become a decision of the House of Representatives. I must also add that one of the things that we are doing at the moment is in trying to amend the Police Act itself to ensure that there is greater transparency in the activities of the Nigerian Police Force. There is an amendment bill before the House brought in by a member from Plateau State, Honorable Yusuf Gaji from Plateau State, brought that bill before the House. It has passed through the second reading, is at the committee stage as we speak, which is a piece of legislation meant to amend the Police Act and ensure that there's greater transparency in the appointment of police chiefs and other principal officers of the police, and most importantly, in ensuring that there is greater community participation in the management of the affairs of the police. When you have issues of breach of human rights, they are promptly reported and promptly addressed. Now, these are some of the issues. You may be aware that sometime last year, too, on the 17th of May last year, there was a clash on whether the issue of the amendment of the Police Act that's being proposed has some degree of a clash with the Constitution and some other piece of legislation, which the House promptly resolved in favor of a holistic review of that law. So these are some of the things that the House of Reps does. But like I said, the House can only act when it receives reports. The House will either refer the matter to the Committee on Public Petition, or to the Committee on Human Rights, or to the Committee on Police Affairs to redress. And they are promptly attended to, and steps are taken in terms of recommendation, in terms of making recommendations for disciplinary actions against such policemen that are involved, and asking for compensation for those whose rights are infringed upon by the police.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bamidele Salam. That's a very robust analysis on what the House is doing and what every other person also should also consider doing, and then to support the members of the National Assembly in trying to ensure that the rights of citizens are not being infringed upon. As we all know, you being a lawyer, right to life is one of the most important aspects of human rights. It goes beyond the provisions of Section 33 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Absolutely.
It also includes issues of healthcare and medical facilities as provided in Section 17, Subsection 3 and Paragraph D of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But we can see that despite these provisions in the Constitution, the state of the healthcare in Nigeria before the COVID was not really something we can write home about. It is only logical to say now that with the outbreak of the pandemic globally and also with us here in Nigeria, the state of our healthcare is said to have dwindled. Now the question to you, Honorable, is this: what is the National Assembly doing to ensure that sufficient funds are being appropriated for healthcare and medical facilities, so that to ensure that the little funds that are appropriated for this healthcare is being properly utilized? What is the National Assembly doing in that regard to funding our healthcare system in Nigeria?
Well, thank you very much. There is this saying that there is a blessing in every disappointment, so to put it. The COVID-19 pandemic, as unfortunate as it is, as painful as it is, also comes with some benefits. And one of the benefits is that it has forced government in many countries of the world to focus attention on the state of the health infrastructure in such countries. So Nigeria is not an exception. Unfortunately, we really have abandoned this very important sector for a very long time. You will recall that the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, who is the chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, said in one of the briefings recently that he never knew that the state of health infrastructure in Nigeria was this terrible before the COVID-19. It's so unfortunate. Now, I have been a local government chairman, and I knew that as a local government chairman, the primary health care institutions are the most used, the most utilized, the most sought after health institution in the country. Nigeria is a federation. The primary health care institutions are solely the responsibilities of the local government and to some extent the state government. The federal government only comes, to offer interventions in the primary health care centers. But the primary health care centers are actually the most sought after because they are the closest to the end users in Nigeria. Unfortunately, they are also the most neglected. You still have some semblance of attention talking about the secondary and the tertiary institutions. You still have some semblance of attention in those places compared to the very parlous and terrible state of our health infrastructure at the primary healthcare level, which should ordinarily be taken care of by the local government and the state government. Nevertheless, as an institution, we believe that the National Assembly, which is the law-making organ of the government, which appropriates money for different sectors in the country, must pay attention to the state of our health facilities, especially with the realities we have today. No matter how wealthy you are, no matter how much resources you have today, you can't even go out. You can't even travel out to go and seek any medical attention. So it is also sensible for those who are in government to pay attention into bringing these medical institutions, health institutions, to a modern standard. Time there was when even the royal family of Saudi Arabia used the University College Hospital in Ibadan for its health needs. How can we bring ourselves to this level where nobody actually thinks there's anything that this health institution can do to solve our health challenges at the most basic level? And that is why the National Assembly, in the consideration of the revised budget, 2020 budget, has earmarked a sum of 300 billion naira above what was initially proposed in the 2020 budget before the revision to attend to the infrastructural gaps that you have in our health institution. Now, I must tell you that is still a peanut. I must admit that is still a drop in the ocean, as it were, but it is still better than not having anything. And also, a sum of 500 billion naira was also earmarked particularly for the fight against the COVID-19 in the revised budget. You are also aware that there was an attempt by the House there is an attempt, actually, it's not been stopped, to amend the Quarantine Act and enact the Infectious Disease Act to cope with this pandemic and any other emergencies that may come up in our health situation. This is also one of the interventions that is coming in that. We're also ensuring that we empower the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Like I said, this is like an intervention agency to do more interventions with the primary healthcare centers. Because like I said earlier on, these are the most critical institutions, our infrastructure in our health industry, the primary healthcare center. So these are some of the things that we're doing. But Jacob, I must let you know that we need to be more holistic in all these things. And the larger percentage of the responsibility and the obligation we have in this regard are those that fall within the purview of the local government and the state government. Unfortunately, most of our local government today are incapacitated by finances. They are incapacitated by having the personnel to run this. But we operate a federal constitution which has highlighted different areas that each government is supposed to take care of. But I think that the time has come for us to, have a more robust and a more all-inclusive attention from the federal, the state, and the local government to our health institutions, because like you rightly said, this is a very, very fundamental of the fundamental human rights of the citizens of this great country.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bamidele Salam, for taking us through that voyage of discovery. Unfortunately, most Nigerians do not even understand the role of the local governments in our various states. We would see a situation whereby if there's a breakdown of an issue in the local government, instead of us to go to our local government representatives, a lot of people put the blame on Mr. President or Mr. Governor. That your response will take me to our next conversation on the issue of literacy. According to the data released by the National Commission according to the data released by the National Commission for Mass Literacy in 2019, 35% of Nigerian adults were described as illiterate. These statistics may be an economic representation in reality, in my own opinion. Nevertheless, it is still alarming that a lot of people still do not understand the role of the local government in this type of
Very
democracy.
unfortunate, I must say. Yeah.
The most of these illiterate populations, as you can see, are domiciled in our rural constituencies, which make up each federal constituencies in which our leaders and representatives are currently seated to represent us in the National Assembly as at now. Now, the question is this: if 35% of the population of these people are illiterate, it is correct to say that 35% of Nigerians do not actually know their rights. Now, the question is this, Honorable Bamidele Salam, as the representative of the people, what do you think members of the National Assembly can do to promote basic human rights enlightenment in their constituency as a way of promoting human rights consciousness as opposed to constructing water pumps, facilities, bearing in mind that people cannot demand their rights when they do not know that they have one?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely correct. We have a situation where, because of the deficiencies in our educational system today, a lot of things that you will assume should be known even by those who have passed through different levels of education are still unknown. I am one person who advocates that basic constitutional education must be incorporated into the curriculum of our schools. I have a foundation, a non-governmental organization that is called the Children of Africa Leadership and Values Development Initiative, which is working on building up the consciousness of young persons on so many areas of leadership, one of which is the awareness on fundamental human rights. For example, the Nigerian Constitution itself, as it is today written, how many people can read and assimilate and comprehend the provisions of the Nigerian Constitution? How many people, even those who are lettered, as it were, who are university graduates? And I think it should start from that. We should be able to break down this knowledge in simple, direct forms so that young Nigerians from the age of 5, 6, and above will begin to learn some of the rudiments of our laws and of our constitutional provisions in such by the time they are coming into adulthood, they will have been well grounded on the issue of fundamental human rights. Apart from this, I also believe very strongly that the civil society has a lot of role to play in this regard. Yes, there have been a lot of attention on the issue of health, attention on security, and some other areas of social work by civil society organizations. But I think we also need to do more work in the area of civil education, in the area of enlightenment of the average citizen, whether he is lettered or unlettered, on those rights that are inalienable, those rights that are granted by the instrument of the law and by natural laws to every person who has the privilege of living at any point in time. I believe that the civil society also has a lot of role to play in this. Now, as a member of the National Assembly, I believe very strongly that we have responsibilities not only to our immediate constituency, but to the larger federation on things like this. And the best way we can do that is in partnership with organizations that share these values and passion about civic education, and also ensuring that we have a way of incorporating civic education, especially those that have to do with teaching about constitution and fundamental human rights in our school curriculum, so that right from childhood, our children learn about what the Constitution says on their right to life, right to education, right to freedom of movement, right to freedom of speech, right to freedom of assembly, and those other rights, that we do have. I must also add here that some of the problems we have with this limitation of our understanding are also cultural in nature. The way we try to suppress people from freely expressing their views on issues, even in the home front, as an impediment to the realization of the larger issues that are involved in terms of fundamental human rights. These are some of the things that I believe that we need to pay greater attention to, and which I am doing through the foundation that I have, the CALDEF, Children of Africa Leadership and Value Development Initiative, and in partnership with some other organizations, we are hoping that we can work together with the Nigeria Bar Association, for example, to scale up the issues of human rights and awareness, especially in the area of access to justice. I've discussed that with a team of legal experts, and I want to reach out to the Nigeria Bar Association to see what we can do together in the area of access to justice. Many people are in various cells and detention and police detention, prison cells, and so on today, only because they have no access, they have no means of accessing justice. Now, this is ungodly. This is unfair, it's ungodly, and it's also unconcerned. And these are some of the things that I believe that we need to do, to enhance the understanding of the average citizen about issues of fundamental human rights.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bamidele Salam. We're still on issue of education. We understand that the promotion of education is one of the fundamental objectives and derivative principle of state policy as contained in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. However, story of education, both from the primary, secondary, and tertiary institution in Nigeria, is not something to write home about. Recently, there were so many issues of abuse and then assault of both the male and female students in the popular video, which we call the sex for grade issues that was flying about. Now, we have issues whereby some students themselves do not even understand what they are in school to learn. You being a federal lawmaker and as a voice of the people, what is the Ninth Assembly doing through lawmaking process and the power of oversight to ensure that our educational system in Nigeria is being revived, knowing fully well that education has largely been described as a passport to the future? So what do you, I am aware that the National Assembly is doing a lot of intervention, but I want to hear your own opinion. What do you think the National Assembly can do more in addition to ensure that every boys and girls have access to the right to education in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. It is one of the saddest points in our national life that today Nigeria accounts for the largest out-of-school children in the world, in the whole world. We account for the largest number of out-of-school children. At the last count, maybe some 13 million children out of school. We can't have a democracy that does not grant access to education to 100% of our children and think that that democracy will survive or will be very productive. This is a major, major challenge to us as a people. And I think this, problem is a pile up of so many years of neglect of the things that we need to do. There is a Child Rights Act, for example, which guarantees that children must be in schools and empowers the government to enforce the going to school of children and meting out punishment to parents of children who refuse to send their children to school, the Child Rights Act. But as we speak today, it is not all the state of the federation that has domesticated the Child Rights Act. Unfortunately, I don't have the exact number, but I think the last time I checked, maybe just barely about 20 states, have domesticated the Child Rights Act, which means those who have not domesticated who have not domesticated the act, you know, are in breach of the spirit of that law. Now, if you have over 13 million children out of school in a population of let's say 200, you are talking of more than 10% is 20, you know, more than 10, almost 10% of your whole population being out of school, and these are children. I believe very strongly that the first step that needs to be taken is in compelling all states of the Federation to domesticate the Child Rights Act. And not only domesticating the act, but enforcing the provisions of that act with regards to children being in school. There is no reason whatsoever for any child in Nigeria to be out of school. Anyone who thinks there's any reason in terms of the school, government not being able to provide for them or what have you, is not being honest. We have all it takes to get all our children in schools in this country. Unfortunately, also, the large percentage of those children are from the northeast and the northwestern part of Nigeria. Now, these are the part of the country with the highest percentage of poverty according to the National Bureau of Statistics. Now you can see the correlation between the poverty level and the mass illiteracy, the non-attendance of schools by young persons. Unfortunately, again, especially in the northeastern part of the country, security-wise, this is the part of the country with the greatest security challenge as we speak, with insurgency and banditry and what have you happening there. So again, you can find the correlation between education and this and security. So it has become a national emergency for us as a country, and we must take it as such. On my own part, as a member of the National Assembly, I, in conjunction with some other colleagues of mine in the National Assembly, a colleague of mine from Bauchi State, Honorable Mansour Manu, and a few other colleagues, we sat together and decided to initiate a parliamentary group on out-of-school children. We met with the leadership of the House, the Speaker of the House of Reps, who gave us his blessings, and created a platform to advance to advocate with the state government, with local government, with federal government agencies, and with non-governmental organizations and civil society organizations on trying to reduce the out-of-school children by at least 80% within a span of 5 years. That's our immediate target. Going forward also, we believe that the Universal Basic Education Commission will be requiring more funds to build classrooms and provide instructional materials for schools, especially in those states that we're expecting that there will be greater inflow of kids into those schools. Unfortunately, when the COVID-19 came and the budget of the federal government was to be reviewed, the budget of the Universal Basic Education Commission also suffered. But by the time the House sat down to look at the budget, we had to insist that more funds must be put into the UBEC votes for the purpose of enhancing the quality of infrastructure at the primary school level. We are also looking at the possibility of creating intervention funds, mainly by donor agencies and the private sector, to push into states with the highest number of out-of-school children. Again, we also must ensure that our religious leaders and organizations, especially critical stakeholders in the religious sector, are mobilized to come forcefully into being major advocates of basic education. I'm saying this very conscious of the fact that in some part of the country today, especially where you have the Almajiri system, there are some of our religious leaders who assume very wrongly that the Almajiri system is sequanon to, is tantamount to or equivalent to promoting a particular brand of the Islamic education. Now, this is wrong. I have read learned persons who have written very comprehensively about the Al-Majiri system, and the conclusion has been that there is nothing in the Islamic system that encourages children to roam about the streets begging and not going to school. Of course, the Al-Majiri system should be incorporated. The Islamic education system should be incorporated into the formal education system. And to do this, we must get the buy-in of our Islamic leaders, religious leaders in the northern part of the country, to ensure that children attend schools to learn both their Quranic studies and the modern formal education. I also want to commend the Forum of Northern Governors, who took a decision on this very recently and began the repatriation and rehabilitation of the Al-Majiris in the northern, in all the 19 northern states. Now, I think this is something that we should encourage and support as an institution with advocacy and with resources, where we can. If you can put all hands on deck on this and regard it as an emergency, I think the target of reducing out of school children in 5 years by 70 to 80% is quite achievable.
Thank you very much. We have questions and comments, but unfortunately, because of our time, we would not be able to take all comments. But then I can see from Adefe Ifibiong Akwan is saying that the National Assembly approved funding for the renovation of the National Assembly. I'm aware you have made your position on that issues of amount of money that was earmarked for the renovation of the National Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much again for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now come to the end of this conversation today with Honorable Bamidele Salam. Honorable Bamidele Salam is an author, a lawyer, a politician, and a federal lawmaker representing the good people of Eden North, Eden South, and Egbedore local government. Egbedore
and Ejibo. You forgot Ejibo. Egbedore and Ejibo.
Oh, sorry, sir. All right, sir. Thank you so much for that correction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. We've now come to the end of the conversation. The Human Rights Cafe is a virtual collaborative conversation of the I Read to Live initiative that features legal practitioners working to support and equip new generation of leaders to know, protect, and promote the rights of humans and dignity of all persons. Once again, I'd like to thank you all for joining this conversation. We can continue the conversation on social media, on YouTube, and on WhatsApp. Thank you very much, and do have a great day. Bye-bye.